isn't out there. Um, this is Wednesday. Yep, Wednesday late in the afternoon. I've done my burpee workout. I'm going to do my little live broadcast of reading from my blog, talking out loud about the whatever pops up, whatever seems to be of interest after I read my blog. Um, Everything's just sort of free flowing always. I don't know what's going to come out, what I'm going to talk about, if anything's worth talking about. Um, that sort of brings in mind the um, post that's coming up. And it's sort of carries on from yesterday's blog post, which was about songbirds. And at the same time, um, I sort of delve into silence, the nature of silence a bit. Um, all of that is very important to me, um, to everyone. Hopefully, that point comes across as I read the blog, that silence is our true reality, our true identity, that anything spoken, anything assumed is just a role that we play. It's not bad. We're meant to play roles, but it all is a layer between um, our authentic self and um, the persona, I guess is the best way of describing it, that we put on to face the world, to navigate the world. Um, Putting on a persona certainly can make it easier to navigate or make it seem to be navigate, but it's hard to say because how often are we in that position of authenticity when um, when we're in contact with it, that we have that accurate comparison to make. So um, just give it a few minutes to see if anyone pops in before I read it. Doesn't really matter anyway because it's going up, so it'll be there if anyone decides they want to read it. Um, I don't really know how to give notice about going live. So I just press the go live button, and as if by magic, I am live um, and rambling on from the very first minute. Uh, Interesting how when I took my instructor's course for teaching meditation, and I had to make some videos describing and teaching the techniques. And although I was very well versed, as because I'd been practicing it for decades, I found myself looking at the camera and not being able to bring out a single coherent word. I felt awkward. Um, the knowledge that I had refused to come out the way I wanted it to come out. And yet, I started talking about burpees, do my workout, and sit in front of the camera, and things just poured out. Everything got easier when I started making those burpee videos. Um, Sort of a comfort in front of the camera, still awkward, um, but that's the probably the nature of who I am. So embrace it. I don't need to be other. I don't need to be different. I need to be me. I need to uncover who that me actually is. When I say uh, being me, in that case, it's shedding the personas, shedding the mask, and yet not denying that there's a mask that's put on, that I'm a different person, a different persona when talking about burpees than when I'm talking about literature, when I'm talking about meditation, when I'm talking about ultra running. But the essence is the same. And by essence, by virtue of that blank, absolute nothingness of essence, I I can't be awkward. I can't be um, anything but bliss, anything but joyous, because everything fits in that. So we'll see if any of that makes sense after I read my blog post. And I have a feeling this will be a short talk. I'll read the blog post and I'll ramble on for a few minutes and we'll call it a day. So, earliest notes. It's fleeting for me. I will usually just catch the earliest notes before the morning air begins to fill with sound, and I have to distinguish their songs from the slow rush of noise that reaches me. I'm up at 4 a.m., an important ritual for me, to wake and meditate in this quietest hour, met only by the dawn chorus of songbirds to greet me. Somehow, it seems that even these earliest notes seem to belong to the silence of the morning. And that's the true nature of silence. In its deepest sense, that it's not really the absence of sound, but more truly it's the ever-present backdrop of reality that allows for vibrations to be heard as an expression of the world. Even the most grating and continuous noise has silence as its home. And to listen closely, mindfully, with bare attention given to its presence, I return to the point where silence seems to break its hold and sounds emerge to the waiting judgment of my mind. It's then that I give labels to what's heard, thinking of the loveliness of the dawn chorus, or the annoyance of the first blare of television as someone turns it on only for the habit of its distraction. Yet silence itself is impartial to every sound. And this being the backdrop of reality. So I'm already impartial too. Dawn chorus no different than blaring noise of television, or at least so by deepest reality. But there's a preference here as well, just as true as the impartial nature of reality. And my own backdrop of silence gives deep appreciation to songbirds and their earliest notes. Dawn chorus causing the least ripple of vibrations to emerge. And that's the scape of silence seems to part with greater pleasure as it allows those sounds to be heard. More than likely, this is just my imagination, but I wake every morning, 4 a.m., to catch those earliest notes of dawn chorus, just to be sure. So that is a description of reality being silence. It's all a description, for one, everything. And a description is never the thing. It's on top of the thing. It's words given to the thing, to the object, to the feeling, to the essence. But it's never the essence itself. Yet, it's not separate from the essence. That's the fine line of non-duality. We sort of want to break things into their silence and their sound. Two things. Non-duality says no. There's silence, and there's the emerging of sound from that depth of silence. It's not two things. The Heart Sutra doesn't say that there is form and there is formlessness, that there's emptiness in form. It's saying emptiness is form. Form is emptiness. Sound is reality. Reality is sound. Sound is silence. Silence is sound. It's one thing. Yet even in non-duality, people like to point out that, words aren't reality. But they are. They're a description of reality. Not a complete, accurate description, but they belong within that essence as much as anything else belongs within the essence. The key is, can we make those words reflect the beauty of reality? Can we allow the blaring television to be as beautiful, as lovely as the dawn chorus of birds, the songbirds? It's already taken care of. Silence says that impartiality is just that. That songbirds aren't any more lovelier in sound than a television commercial. The mind says otherwise. The mind says, no, that silence is more sacred. Thing is, can we live in that mundane world of television, of commercials, of noise, of construction workers, of um, all that stuff that's going on, traffic, the pounding of um, cars going by constantly beneath the window? Can we live with that and see that it's so different than the sound of songbirds? Reality says it is. One thing. However, as I talked about here in the blog post, um, wouldn't surprise me if silence has a deeper appreciation, parts with a little more joy to the sound of a songbird than it would a television commercial. I know that's me putting that persona on silence. That's fine. Um, it's the way I like it. Um, nature has that sacredness. Again, description. This is sacred and this isn't. Um, the truth is, everything just vibrates at a different level. With that being the case, somebody actually might be more comfortable. Right? That's the thing. We all know people who, as soon as they enter the room, have to turn on the television set or have to have some kind of sound to, was it Pascal who said all of man's miseries stem from his inability to sit alone in a room, complete silence? I don't know. It was Pascal. I do know that. But I don't know if that's necessarily so. I don't know, because they're not experiencing true silence. The person who is afraid of his own thoughts isn't afraid of the silence. It's afraid of not having those thoughts as an identity. There's a difference. When we slip into the gap, in meditation, the gap is the description of the silence between thought, that we don't have a continuous stream of thought. We have a thought. If we did, it wouldn't make any sense. Imagine one continuous note and calling it a song. Although there's lots of people who don't appreciate jazz, you might say, well, yeah, we call that jazz. To me, now that's sacrilege. Jazz is, we have the sounds of nature. We have classical symphony music. We have jazz. We have the Beatles, jazz, Beatles on that same level. And then we have noise. Everything else is, just slightly less. Classical music is definitely the music of the gods, the music of the spheres. The closest that we've come to that subtle vibration of pure beingness. Jazz being a little more abstract than classical music. So, back to the gap. As you can see, that you can't have that continuous thought. There has to be a break in order to make sense. If we just had thought with no break, it would be babble in our heads. And so we have a thought, we have a space, we have a thought, we have a space. It just happens so quickly that we never realize that there's that backdrop, that background of complete silence. Who we are, the complete silence of the universe, is right here within us. We are actually the complete silence of the universe. We don't need to look for it. We don't need to find it. The key to meditation is we're not going someplace in our minds to reach somewhere we are not yet. That's what Ram Dass meant when he said, be here now. We are here. We are now. We just need to realize it. So as we meditate, let's say our mind is occupied by the mantra. We have a thought, we're thinking, we're thinking, we're thinking. We repeat the mantra. Things slow down a little bit. We repeat the mantra, the mantra, the mantra. And then we have a thought. Back to the mantra. You can see how my voice is lowering, going down, down, down. That's what's happening to the mind. We're sinking to that level of quiet, and we slip. Literally, we slip right into that gap in between thoughts. Complete silence. Now, we don't stay there, and as a matter of fact, we don't even recognize that we're there until we're out. Because when we're in a gap, in the absence of everything, how can you recognize anything? There's nothing there. What we recognize is when we're out of the gap and we think, wow, something happened, something different happened, something different that felt completely safe, as if I was at home for the first time. But I remember being there one time before. I remember being there back before that emergence of my thinking mind, the emergence of my personality, the emergence of who and what I am. Remember, thoughts, personality, personas, roles that we put on, voices, none of that is us. We're not our thoughts. We are the silence that allows thoughts to come by. If we can recognize that gap, fall in it during meditation. There's a story of some of the southwestern native tribes who would take a cloth. Let's say they wanted to dye it red. Take a canvas cloth. They dip it in a vat of red dye and they pull it out. You don't notice anything at all. You dip it in that vat again, you pull it out. Still might not notice anything at all. You dip it again, just a very slight tint, the littlest hint of the possibility of red. And then you dip it back in and you repeat. Eventually, it becomes a solid color of red. When we meditate, we dip into silence, reality, our reality. We can call it the soul. I like the thought of soul as being one thing. We're not individual souls, we're soul. When we meditate, we dip into that and we come out. We don't notice anything. No one notices anything. We dip into it again. Maybe repeated. A week of meditation, 2 weeks of meditation, a year of meditation, 30 plus years of meditation for me. And I'm a little more the color of my true nature, closer to my soul. I look more like who I am. Now that's meditation. Here's another way. Douglas Harding of Headlessness fame. Reading Douglas Harding's book on having no head, another book, changed my life instantly. However, it was doing his experiments. Not enough to read, although sometimes certain words just smack you right in the face and say, everything's done. Everything's different. You are a completely different person than you were before. Just a sentence in a book, maybe the whole book. It was that way with Douglas Harding's book, but more so, he did his experiment, which is pointing, direct pointing. There's a school of Tibetan Buddhism, Dzogchen, which is direct recognition of our true nature, direct recognition of reality. And the headless way, headless pointing, it's the same thing. It's direct recognition. It's Zen in its finest form. And what we do is, I'm pointing at the floor. I see the floor. I see the floor as a thing, as an object. It has a carpet, it has color, it has texture, it has feeling. And it appears to be separate from me, an object. And I point at my feet. two more objects. I can wiggle my toes. I can see the color of my skin. I can see that the color of my skin is separate from the color of the carpet. I can see that I can lift my feet up separate from the carpet. My feet are objects, objects in space. I move up. I see my legs. I see my hips. I see my torso. I'm pointing right at them. I'm pointing and I'm recognizing that these are objects appearing in space. They're mine. It's my torso. It's my legs. It's my feet. It's my carpet too. But they're objects, and it's appearing in space. There's space and there's objects. So I keep going up. I point, I take my finger, and I point at my head. I point at my face. And I look in the direction that I'm pointing. This way. I'm not looking at my finger. I'm not looking straight ahead. I'm looking what I'm pointing at. I'm looking for another object. Here's the thing. Pointing. Completely innocent. Letting go of all traces of expectations, what I expect to see. Childlike curiosity. If I point at anything, I want to see what is it that I'm pointing at. What is it that I'm pointing at right now? It appears when I look at that camera, and what you're seeing is that here's some crazy guy pointing at his face, talking about objects, talking about space. That's true. However, my perspective, my authority, it's the greatest thing that we can offer. My authority. I don't need to back up my spiritual authority to anyone because it's mine. I can go by what I see directly, and no one can argue that. Doesn't matter if they do, because I'm seeing reality directly. I'm Zen. I'm seeing Zen. I'm experiencing Zen. So here it is. I'm pointing. I'm looking in the direction that I'm pointing. And what do I see? I see absolutely nothing. Spaciousness. I don't see an object. I don't see an object. Now, if I look closely, I see the rim of glasses. I see the tip of my nose. I see the beginning of my mustache there, or the end result of my mustache. So here's the thing, though. Where is that emerging from? I don't see its origins. I don't see where it's emerging from. I see nothing. I see spaciousness. I see glasses coming out of nowhere. I see a tip of a nose coming out of nowhere. I see the end point of my mustache and beard coming out of nowhere. Nothingness. I am directly pointing at the Heart Sutra. Nothingness becoming form. Here's the wonderful thing about this nothingness that I'm experiencing right now. Complete emptiness. And yet, I see a camera. I see my appearance of a head, of a face. Over there, not here. Amazing that I'm over there. I see lips moving. I hear words coming out. But here, nothing. Complete nothingness. I see a camera. I see my computer over here. I see a desktop. I see my body. It's all emerging, being in spaciousness itself. That's the nature of silence. That's the nature of spaciousness. That's the nature of reality. Things just coming up. Things just happening. It's all spontaneous. So that's the headless experiment from Douglas Harding. It really is a life-altering. You see it directly, and you never go back because you always know that you are an emerging force from spaciousness itself, an emerging force from emptiness itself. Emptiness always remains, and yet, here's a better word for emptiness: capacity. Capacity has an ability to hold everything. There's a Zen saying that it's a space within the vase that holds the flower. It's the space between the notes that make a song. That's when you point, that's what you see. You see reality. You see the space in which Eric emerges. You see the space in which you emerge from. And yet there's no separation. It's capacity. It's the allowance of things to be. Um, I'll try to remember to put a link to Douglas Harding's books um, when we're finished talking, which is coming up in a few minutes. I really thought um, without an audience that I would read my blog and call it a day. But here I am rambling on for almost half an hour. We're coming up on 26 minutes or so. And, to me, the live sessions, it's been just as fulfilling as putting out my morning burpee videos, whether or not anyone shows up live or not. It kind of puts me on the spot to live that reality of spontaneity. Words either come or I'm gonna sit here looking at the camera and not saying a single word. You know, just blank expression on my face, sheer panic. I'm live, and even though nobody's here, um, nothing's coming out. Absolutely fine. Here's the magic of that seeing that we were talking about, Douglas Harding. Um, Everything's natural. Everything belongs. Uh, Everything is coming out of that emptiness. And how can I do? How can I possibly do anything that doesn't belong? How can I possibly do anything that is awkward, that isn't me, that isn't truth and reality um, and authentic? How can I not be authentic when I come from that place of absolute emptiness? That's the magic of recognizing emptiness. That's the magic of the Heart Sutra. That direct recognition of authenticity. So sometimes when I go to write in the morning and no words come, I'm completely happy sitting in the absence of words, because that's where words show up. That's where things come. They come to that void. They come to that emptiness. They come to capacity. Everything has to come to capacity. Everything has to emerge from capacity, because that's its true home. All right, guys, let's wrap it up. Um, and if you watch this later and you have a question, let me know in the comment section. Uh, if there is something that you want me to talk about, let me know in the comment section. If you want me to keep quiet and never do another live session again, let me know in the comment section. Um, Everything will be taken under consideration, and then everything will just happen the way it's supposed to happen, regardless of how I feel about it. Um, so more than likely, I'll keep putting out live videos uh, because there's an enjoyment that comes with it. I appreciate it. All right, guys. Thanks. Have a good day. I'll see you tomorrow.